stop. Before you spend another penny on carp fishing gear, watch this. Because right now you're probably staring at a wall of rods, reels, rigs, and gadgets and wondering which ones you actually need and which ones are just expensive ways to catch nothing. I've been there. I wasted money on stuff I never used, and I almost gave up before I ever hooked my first carp. So in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you the exact setup, and only the setup, that you need to start catching carp as a complete beginner. No fluff, no 15-rod arsenal, just what works. Let's get into it. First things first, let's talk rods and reels because this is where most beginners either overspend or underspend. For carp fishing, you want what's called a carp rod. These are typically rated around 2.5 to 3.25 pounds test curve. That number tells you how much pressure it takes to bend the rod. And for carp, that middle range gives you the power to handle big fish without being so stiff that you snap your line on the take. A 9 to 12-foot rod is the sweet spot for most lakes and rivers you'll fish as a beginner. Now, for the reel, you don't need anything fancy. A simple, free-spool carp reel is what you're after. Free-spool means that when a fish picks up your bait and starts to move off, the line can pay out freely without the fish feeling resistance. That's crucial because carp are smart and cautious. If they feel tension on the line, they'll often drop the bait and swim off before you even know they were there. A reel with a good free-spool clutch system lets the fish take line naturally. Then you flick the bail arm over and you're in business. Here's my honest advice. Buy a rod and reel combo from a reputable tackle brand. You'll find perfectly good starter combos for a fraction of the price of buying separately, and they're matched to work well together. You really do not need to spend a fortune here. Save your money for the things that actually make a bigger difference, which we're about to get into. Let's talk about line, because this is one area where beginners often get it wrong, and it costs them fish. For your main line, you want a monofilament line between 10 and 15-pound breaking strain. Mono is forgiving. It has a bit of stretch in it, which acts like a shock absorber when a powerful carp makes a sudden run. That stretch can be the difference between landing your first carp and watching your hook pull free at the worst possible moment. Some anglers prefer braided line because it has almost no stretch, which means more sensitivity. You feel every tap and movement. But for a beginner, that lack of give can actually work against you, especially if your drag isn't set up perfectly. My advice? Start with a good quality monofilament. It's more forgiving of small mistakes, and as a beginner, you will make small mistakes. That's completely normal, and it's how you learn. Now let's get into hooks and weights. The business end of your setup, and honestly, this is where carp fishing gets really interesting. For carp, you'll want hooks in around size 6 to size 8. These give you a strong, sharp hook that can handle a big, powerful fish without bending or snapping, but isn't so large that it looks unnatural to a cautious carp. And here's something that might surprise you. Most modern carp fishing isn't done with a hook buried inside the bait. Instead, anglers use something called a hair rig. This is a short length of line tied to the hook with a small loop, the hair, that dangles just behind the hook point. Your bait, usually a round pellet called a boilie, sits on that hair, completely separate from the hook itself. When the carp sucks in the bait, it sucks the hook in right alongside it, and because the hook isn't buried in the bait, it finds skin and sets itself. It sounds technical, but once you tie one, you'll realize it's actually wonderfully simple. And it's one of the biggest reasons modern carp anglers catch so many more fish than anglers did decades ago. For weights, you'll want to look at what's called a lead. A weighted weight that helps cast your rig out and holds it in place on the lake bed. As a beginner, a simple running lead setup is your best friend. This means the weight isn't fixed solidly to your line. It can slide a little, so when a carp picks up the bait and moves off, it doesn't feel the resistance of the weight and spook. 2 to 3 ounces is a great starting point for most stillwater lakes. Now let's talk about something that will completely change how you fish. Bite alarms. If you've never used one, a bite alarm is an electronic device that clips onto your rod rest. When a fish takes your bait and starts pulling line, the alarm detects the movement and lets out a beep, alongside a flashing light. This means you don't have to stare at your rod tip for hours on end, waiting and hoping. You can relax, have a flask of tea, chat with a friend, and the alarm will tell you the second you've got a bite. For beginners, a basic 2 or 3 rod alarm set with a receiver box is more than enough. You really don't need all the bells and whistles that the top-end models come with. What matters is that it's reliable, it's weatherproof, and it gives you a clear signal so you never miss a take. Trust me, the first time that alarm goes off and you see your rod bending into a fish, you'll understand why so many anglers fall in love with this sport. Let's talk about something just as important as catching the fish: actually landing it safely. You'll need a proper carp landing net. These are large, soft meshed nets specifically designed to cradle big fish without damaging their scales or fins. Look for one with an oval or triangular frame at least 36 inches across, paired with a sturdy handle. Carp can be surprisingly powerful right up until the very last moment, so a net that's too small or flimsy can cost you the fish. And more importantly, it can hurt the fish. And we always want to look after what we catch. Alongside your net, I'd also recommend picking up an unhooking mat, a padded mat you lay the fish on while you carefully remove the hook and take a quick photo. It keeps the fish safe, comfortable, and ready to swim back home strong. Good practice like this isn't just about looking after the fish. It's part of what makes this hobby so rewarding. You're not just catching fish, you're learning to respect them. So now you might be wondering, how does all of this come together into one simple setup that actually works? Here it is. Picture this: a 9 to 12-foot carp rod with a 2.5-pound test curve paired with a free-spool reel loaded with 12-pound monofilament line. On the end, a simple running lead rig, around 2.5 ounces, with a hair-rigged size 6 hook, baited with a single boilie. Cast that out into an area of the lake where you've seen fish activity, perhaps near reeds, overhanging trees, or a gentle drop-off in depth. Place your rod on a rest, attach your bite alarm, and sit back. That's it. That's genuinely the only setup you need to start catching carp as a beginner. It's simple, it's proven, and it's exactly what experienced anglers still fall back on when they want a setup that just works. You don't need 10 different rigs or a tackle box the size of a suitcase. You need the right basics, used with a little patience. And patience, more than any piece of gear, is what makes a carp angler. If this video helped clear things up, do me a favor and hit subscribe. I'm putting together a whole series to help beginners go from completely lost at the tackle shop to confidently landing their first carp. Drop a comment and let me know what you'd like to see covered next, whether that's bait choices, reading the water, or your first session walkthrough. Thanks so much for watching Tight Lines, and I'll see you in the next one.